Hello, I am Pola Churchill. I am a rebirther and I am author of the book Shiva Mahavatar Babaji. So now I'd like to introduce to you Leonard, founder of Rebirthing, author, visionary, international consultant, and brilliant genius. Thank you, Leonard, for being here today.
Thank you.
So, to date, since 1974, you have reached, 10 million people worldwide that are now practicing rebirthing? And you have done this without government assistance or any publicity whatsoever. That is amazing. Now, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, can you explain the energy of the breath in the rebirthing process? How it cleans, nourishes, and rejuvenates the body on a physical, emotional, and spiritual way?
I don't know that you can explain it. I mean, you can observe it. For example, we know that the connected breathing rhythm that's done in rebirthing breath work is, it balances the blood. For example, I once had a couple in one of my trainings who were both doctors, medical doctors, and one of them had high blood pressure and the other had low blood pressure. And they measured their blood pressure before and after their session, their first sessions, and they noticed that the one with high blood pressure had a reduction in blood pressure as a result of their session, and the one with low blood pressure had a raise in blood pressure during their session. And so breathing is something that can harmonize and balance diametrically different conditions. And so that's one of the natures of the breath. In terms of the mind, we know that breathing, every inhale and every exhale induces relaxation automatically.
What about the nervous system?
Yes, well, physiologically, not only does it clean the blood, but it also balances the nervous system. And so it induces spiritual peace and also the transcendental state. The connected breathing, especially after people learn it and have cleaned out their fundamental collection of trauma and tension in the mind and the body, they can use it to go to the transcendental state in just a few seconds.
But the basic energy of the breath balances and calms the blood system, the nervous system. Right. Good, great.
And it brings healing energy to all the cells of the body.
It has a total calming effect.
Right.
Good. Okay. Now, if you had the cure for the common cold, you'd probably make a fortune. But if you told everybody all you had to do is connect the breath, they wouldn't believe you. Now, I ask this question because I know you haven't had a cold in 10 years. So, my question is the common cold a stuck birth memory?
Well, I do have the cure for the common cold, but it doesn't happen instantaneously. What we have noticed as a result of teaching breathing to millions of people is that the first year that they learn it and practice the connected breathing rhythm, the incidence of colds and the severity of colds reduces the first year.
It's less and less, yeah.
Right, and then after a few years of practice, 2 or 3 years of practice, they have their first coldless year, usually of their lives, and with continued practice, colds become less and less frequent until they practically disappear.
There's usually gradually over a period of time, but it does work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the cure for the common cold might take 3 years of practice, but it's not going to happen unless people learn this ability, which we call intuitive breathing, rebirthing breathing, whatever it's called, connected breathing, conscious breathing. And when people learn it and they practice it, and it's easy to practice because it's so pleasurable, then it eventually brings about the cure for the common cold, as well as many other diseases.
Yeah, many other diseases. That's my next question. You say all symptoms are healings in process. Can you explain what other symptoms are, such as asthma, epilepsy, and migraine headaches?
Well, as a result of seeing thousands of people lose those symptoms from practicing rebirthing, I've concluded that there are certain causes, and that birth trauma is one of the fundamental causes of all three of those particular diseases. Asthma, of course, is a respiratory difficulty, and we learn to breathe at birth, so there's an obvious connection there. Migraine headaches is the cause and effect relationship is not quite so obvious, but what we've noticed is that when people have that migraines seem to be caused by deprivation of oxygen to the brain when the umbilical cord is cut at birth, and that when people learn the breathing rhythm, that eventually that memory of the first breath comes to the surface, and when it does, then the migraine pattern seems to disappear.
So they can get to the root of the thought, the memory, the birth memory, and then they clear it on a cellular level through the breath out of the body.
Right.
Good, thank you.
Right. Epilepsy is a little more complicated if you want to go into it, because in addition to being a stuck birth trauma memory, it has another level which is really symbolized by the fact that epilepsy is sometimes referred to as the spiritual disease. Because one doctor's wife in Southern California healed her epilepsy through rebirthing, helped her husband in their office heal patients that came into the office going into a seizure, helped them breathe through it without any trauma. And then she also worked with her specialist doctor, and they discovered that there was another common denominator, which was that all of these people had spiritual visions or out-of-body experiences which they felt that they could not talk to anybody about. And so in addition to the birth trauma common denominator, they're giving them an opportunity and making it safe for them to talk about their spiritual visions and their spiritual experiences was part of the procedure.
So there's like a combination of fear, holding back, not being able to express.
Right.
And the other factor.
Yeah, and so obviously that fear builds up tension in the body until the body just has so much and there's a seizure. And so then you have to deal with the other factors.
All right, that's very interesting. Okay, now, you say also, these quotes are from your new book, The Healing Manual. You say most terminal diseases and mental illnesses are caused from birth. I mean, that is quite a shocking statement. How does that occur? How does that happen?
Yeah, birth and body memories from infancy.
So that is birth trauma? That's birth trauma.
Well, let's take heart disease, which is the number one killer. When a person is born, they leave the protected, safe, watery environment of the womb, and they enter what we call the cold, cruel world.
The what?
Cold, cruel world.
Yeah, right.
And so the organism receives the most stress that it has experienced since it was formed in the womb. And so the impact of that on the heart can be obvious.
Just the shock from the interior is warm and cozy to the exterior hostile world.
Right, exactly. And so that shock can register. It can cause so much tension that the heart stops working. And probably there's a tremendous percentage of people during birth that actually have a heart attack at birth, which of course is not noticed by anybody. And I'm sure it was true with myself, because I have relived those moments and felt terrifying sensations in my heart. And as a result of breathing through those sensations, notice that the organ just relaxes and goes back to work.
So the feeling is lessened through the energy of the breath, breathing that out again.
Right. And so then that aspect of birth karma can set people up for heart disease in later life. And if the memory, the body memory, is never successfully dealt with, then it can...
It still remains. It's there in your cells. It's in the memory, isn't it?
Right. And so people don't know how to deal with it when it happens later in life. But how would you explain
cancer? I mean, terminal diseases are marked from birth, so the memory is there. What about cancer? What about all the other diseases that...
Well, I don't know. Cancer would not necessarily be birth caused, except in the sense that there might be a traumatized spot on the body or organ in the body that would be made susceptible by birth trauma. But I think cancer in most cases is caused by diet.
Well, that was my next question. From your experience yourself of healing cancer, what is the most effective way of helping people prevent and cure cancer? How important is diet? It's extremely important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's all important. And to start with, I think that people should be vegetarians, that we just need to do a better job of educating people and selling and marketing the idea of vegetarianism.
Is this true? Our digestive tract is not designed for animal fats. It's designed for vegetables?
Well, I read that and I experienced that in my own experience. I experienced that when I did make the switch from vegetarianism, from being a meat eater to being a vegetarian. I went back and forth several times, and I noticed that just one meal of meat does have a clogging effect on the digestive system.
So the factors that help cancer are diet. What other purification practices would you suggest?
Well, when you're dealing with terminal disease, then you're automatically dealing with the death urge. And the death urge is...
the unconscious death urge.
Yeah, the unconscious death urge is an emotional complex of negative feelings that have to be dealt with on some level. So the way that I deal with it personally is by thinking of it in terms of emotional energy pollution, and to clean my energy body of emotional energy pollution by using mind techniques.
When you talk about energy pollution, you're talking about from other people?
Primarily. Primarily,
yeah.
But that emotional energy pollution starts at birth, even prenatally.
Right.
And so, in one sense, you can say that all human problems come from emotional energy pollution. It's very fundamental. And so then to become aware enough of our energy body and then to learn how to clean the energy body is the secret to health and healing. And so the techniques that I use deal with earth, or water, and fire.
Can you illustrate those? I mean, earth would be what? Food mastery, which is diet.
Yeah, good nutrition.
Exercise.
And fasting, exercise. And then our relationship to food, as well as all of our activities in the world involve career. So I would fit our career.
That you love.
Yeah, finding a career that we love is very important.
So you're basically talking about the elements of earth, air, fire, mind, practicing the presence of God. loving relationships. All these combinations help us in our healing process.
Right.
So air would be air purification, rebirthing.
Right, breathing.
Water would be
bathing, as well as being conscious of the water that we drink, the water quality that we drink.
And the mind?
Bathing, whether it's soaking in water or taking showers, instantly brings about a change in the energy body. And so having the practice of doing it twice a day, which is my practice, which I learned from the immortal yogis, is something which constantly just keeps washing away the emotional energy pollution, and it has cumulative benefits the longer we do it.
So you're saying really to incorporate the elements into our daily practice of spiritual purification helps clear the energy body, emotionally, physically, spiritually, which enables us more divine energy and more purification for our whole healing process.
Right. If our body and mind are filled with divine energy, then we're happy and healthy.
So that is your basic daily practice: bathing twice a day, energy, rebirthing.
Pola, let's hold that question for a second.
Yeah, we need to hold on to that. We've got to go alarm. That's the problem.
Good question. It's a little distracting.
Do you know, I didn't even hear that. I was so absorbed. I didn't even.
They shut it off. Let's make sure it stays off. Then we can start that.
Was that the whole? Was that going on this whole question?
Well, it came up in the middle of his answer.
Because that's quite important.
You know, if we could just pick it up with bathing twice a day, that would help. And then you can go on
With his answer.
His answer.
Because you've heard
Bathing
my
twice a
question,
day.
so he's going to answer. Okay.
Okay.
So just run through the element.
Yeah, so my personal practice is that I bathe twice a day. And whether I'm showering or soaking in water, my experience is that the water takes away emotional energy pollution on a daily basis every time I do it, and it has cumulative benefits year after year. I just feel better and better and better.
Good. Great. Okay, now the book, The Course of Miracles, talks about releasing blocks, fears, and resistances we have to receiving and experiencing love. Is this an important part of our healing process too?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, love, practicing love is important.
Good.
In Italian, Portuguese, French, Spanish, the word for love is amor.
Amore.
And amor means without death.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
And so love is living in the energy
More
of life without death.
without death. How interesting. Good. What is the most important self-discovery that you've made in your life?
Well, the most important is the awareness that energy becomes what it thinks about. And since I am energy, thought, and form, then controlling my thoughts, the quality of my thoughts is very important. But the second most important discovery is the idea that earth, air, water, and fire are the physical qualities of God, or the physical qualities of that energy. The basic manifesting qualities of that energy are earth, air, water, and fire. And to have respect for the power of the elements, and at the same time to keep evolving my mind so that eventually I can transcend that power is fundamental to understanding mastery on the human level and mastery on the divine level.
What are the three components that make up the concept and the practice of physical immortality?
Well, basically, the spiritual component is philosophy, developing a philosophy around the destiny and role of the body. And then there is the psychology which has to do with cleaning the emotions, specifically healing the unconscious death urge, which we learned from our family tradition. And then third is the physiology, which is centered in our understanding of earth, air, water, and fire, and having a conscious relationship with earth, air, water, and fire. And the body is the action, constant interaction of earth, air, water, and fire. So developing a practical principles and spiritual practices around earth, air, water, and fire is absolutely fundamental.
What are the secrets, do you think? Now, this is a question all the women in America want to know. What are the secrets, do you think?
Well, I don't know all of the answers. I'm just, I know that when I do spiritual practices, my body feels lighter and healthier and stronger every year. In terms of the cosmetic aspects of youthing, I know that as I experience more spiritual peace, that that my body has a tendency to reflect that. But I think that there are techniques in yoga that have practical consequences that we have never explored. Such as the practice of Shiva Kalpa.
Can you explain what Shiva Kalpa is?
Yeah, basically it's the use of our own urine for healing. And so there's the practice of drinking an ounce or two a day of the first urine, the middle of the first urine. That's the basic practice in relation to the oral dimension. And then the scripture says that we should.
Wait a minute. Why would you drink the urine? I mean, is it because it has like a built-in pharmaceutical quality to it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so that's the purpose of drinking urine.
Right. It's called the water of life, and the water of life has, by recycling that aspect of our existence, it seems to have a pharmaceutical healing effect on the body, and that has been proven in thousands of cases. There's
they've been doing that the yogis have been doing that in India for thousands of
millions
years. It's
of years.
nothing new. It's just new to us here in the West.
Right. So it's a new concept in the West, and it's referred to in the scripture as the basic rite or technique of rejuvenation. And so then the external use is to boil it down to 25%, and then to use that for massage.
To massage on
the skin, the whole skin.
Oh, okay. So you can drink it internally and then use it externally.
Right. And so in the scripture, there's also recommendations of using certain substances along with it that refine its power.
Such as what?
I haven't experimented with those substances, and I don't have.
Oh, I see. So they might be like powders or minerals. Or...
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Okay. Who is Babaji, and what is your personal experience of him?
Okay. Well, Babaji, the word means ruling father.
The ruling father.
And my experience of him is that he's the ruling father of the universe, the creator of the universe, the eternal spirit, and that he builds bodies for his own personal use, and that he appears to people in the historical condition of humanity for different periods of time, sometimes very long periods of time, even millions of years, that he participates in human history, and that at other times he appears and disappears at will to individuals, and that in fact is doing that now to thousands of individuals all over the world. And so I have made it a point of collecting relationships with people that have that kind of relationship with him. And I've had many visitations personally not only in human form, but also in animal forms.
What was your first experience of Babaji?
Well, my first conscious experience happened when I was meditating in Houston, Texas in 1977, and he appeared to me in a very powerful young yogic body. And as I saw him, I realized after much meditation later that he was probably sitting someplace in a cave in the Himalayas. But he appeared to me for 3 minutes and then disappeared, and it answered a lot of questions, and his presence and his intention gave my body a warm glow that was the most beautiful feeling that I ever had in my mind and body that lasted a week.
And what was the message that Babaji gave you?
The practical message was that I was agonizing over whether to keep working in the West because I had so much work to do. There was so much demand for what I was teaching that I didn't think that I had time to go to India. And then the alternative was to go to India and to meet immortal yogis and to learn more about immortal yogis. And so so that
gave you confirmation. Now I have to go to India and do my study of the immortal yogis.
Right. It was.
So Babaji was like a catalyst for you to go and do that.
It was a message, just a message that he delivered.
Great.
One of the messages that he delivered in that appearance.
Now you say Babaji is also the angel of the Lord in the Bible.
Yeah. And you can find him in all the great scriptures. He's also in the Quran. But in the Bible, he's known as the angel of the Lord. He's in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. And that's a wonderful source for getting really good information on his style. He has...
How do you recognize him? Is this intuitively through his energy? Is it visually? Is it a combination? How do you recognize Babaji's energy? It's because it's pretty unique, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you recognize it by the fact that his energy or his message always satisfy the immediate needs of the soul at its deepest level.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
At its deepest level.
So you can feel the energy of the source and its certainty.
Right.
Okay. Now the other question I want to ask you, when you did this study of the immortals, I know that your prerequisite for this study was that each yogi had to be at least 300 years young. Now, when you got there, how did you know, how could you prove how old they were? How did you find these beings? And what did you learn from them? What was how did they manage to stay in their bodies so at 300 years old, still young and healthy and vibrant?
Well,
how did they do that?
Well, there's different levels of mastery, and 380-year-old yogi that I met didn't look young.
He didn't look young?
No, he looked very old. And he did claim to be a master, like Babaji, for example, who's 2,000 years old, and who became a total master of the physical universe at about 700. So there is a level of mastery that we can achieve. And if you read the scriptures, for example, the Ramayana, Ram's father was over 60,000 years old, and he wasn't a master. So longevity doesn't necessarily give you the secrets to mastery. That's an inner spiritual process.
So that's not the goal, to live to 700 years old. The goal is to live in truth, simplicity, and love.
Yeah.
Practice the presence of God.
Yeah, and also to understand life and to master the body.
Yeah, because people say, well, why on earth would you want to live that long, if you're in pain or in your misery or if you're sick? So the goal is to be healthy, to live in peace and joy and
to learn how to heal ourselves, to heal
learn how to heal
the
ourselves.
mind so that we can have inner peace, and to heal the body so that we can participate in the world on the practical level with a healthy body that really works.
Sorry, what about this yogi Babaji? Now he's 2,000 years old in the same body. Can you talk a little bit about him?
Well, he's actually one of the yogis that's the easiest to track through history, because he was the emperor of all of India in 56 BC, and he gave up his kingdom to become a sadhu.
Sounds like Siddhartha.
Right.
Yeah, that's a similar story. Yeah.
And he gave up his body, he gave up his kingdom to become a sadhu and to seek spiritual growth. And as a result of that, he was famous from the beginning.
And I believe he does a demonstration every 108 years where he buries himself in cement and you can see him walking around his ashram 5 minutes later. That's incredible.
Well, some people can.
All right, well, thank you very much, Leonard, for being with us here today, and we'll look forward to doing the 5-day training. Namaste.
Thank you.
Yes.